Hello and welcome to the European Parliament. I'm Nick Griffin, the Vice President of the Alliance for Peace and Freedom. Joining me today for this discussion are Udo Voigt, the MEP for the NPD, National Democratic Party of Germany. On my left here, Hervé van Latham, who's the chairman of the Belgian Nationalist Party Nation. And on my far left, Roberto Fiore, who's the President of the Alliance for Peace and Freedom and, of course, the leader of the Italian party Forza Nuova. So welcome to you all. I'd like to talk today primarily about the intolerance of the tolerant in this place with the supposed liberal values of the European Union. And some of our viewers won't know that in the effort to defund the Alliance for Peace and Freedom, the people who run the European Union actually defunded 6 basically fake fraud parties which were there just to get money for the people running them and for their parties. So this scam had been going on for, 20 years? And to get rid of us, they had to get rid of that. That shows how fanatical these people are. But on the big picture, I'd like to bring you in, Roberto, first of all, to tell us a little bit about what's going on with the European Parliament and Hungary.
Well, I would say that this is the last attempt of the European authorities to stop a dramatic change that is taking place in Europe, that is involving especially countries like Hungary, Poland and others. Basically, the attempt is not a political, it's a juridical, or I would say it's a bureaucratic way to get rid of people who do not accept this kind of Europe, and they're talking about a new kind of Europe, because that's another important point. No one is speaking against Europe. Everyone is now speaking against this Europe, which is a major difference. Now, obviously, they're trying to do this before May, because everyone expects major changes taking place in May, and everyone expects that really the all powers to be that at the moment controls the bureaucratic and anti-democratic powers in Brussels are going to disappear. But in the meantime, they're going to say, well, you think in this way, so you don't vote. Well, you think in this way, so you're going to pay a big fine because you are racist or something else. So this is going to take place in the next few months, but it will stop inevitably in the month of May, when the elections will be held and major change will take place.
Okay, so obviously it started with the Parliament voting very recently to condemn Hungary for its violation of European values and to suspend, the Parliament has now asked the European Commission to suspend Hungary's voting rights, which is an extraordinarily tough stand to take against one of your own countries. And very interesting, I think this was this last week or the week before?
2 weeks ago in Strasbourg. It was very interesting because Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, came by himself to explain the situation, and it was a very hard discussion in the Parliament. The left and the Greens attacked him, and for my surprise, a lot of members of the EPP in the European Parliament attacked him too.
Now the EPP is the Christian Democratic
Party, and in this fraction, the members from Fidesz, from Orban's party, are also inside. And they attacked him, and also maybe the next president of the European Parliament, Weber, Christian Democrat, he attacked him too, and he said in his speech against Hungary, I will vote against you. And there were some people from Hungary and some conservative French which spoke pro-Hungary, but I think 60 or 70% voted against him.
Wow.
And so he had to make a decision if he wants to stay in this fraction or not. But anyway, it is the first Prime Minister in the European Parliament which comes to each discussion about his own country. And after we elected, after we voted, We got last week a letter personally from Viktor Orban, named by the name of the member from the parliament, and he said, thank you that you stay for Hungary.
Oh, so you've got that letter.
I got this
But
letter
a
too, yes.
tremendous souvenir in due course of your time here in the Parliament. But I think it's very significant, actually, that obviously Hungary was being attacked through its position on the European University, the Soros front
Yes.
thing, on its stand for family values as opposed to the whole gay and gender thing. And I think it's really heartening that Orban's response to this vicious attack on him, his party, and the people of his country, because obviously there's massive support for these small c conservative things. Orban gave his response yesterday when he announced that gender studies are now to be banned from Hungarian universities. So that's another black mark for Hungary in terms of not according to European values, because of course gender studies, the idea that you can just pick and change your gender from a list, I think it's now, it was, last time we mentioned this, it was 42. Apparently now there's 70 plus genders recognised. So Orban has said no, not having this, so very good. But Udo, that's obviously Hungary. Is Hungary a one-off, or are other countries in the East being attacked in the same way by the liberal elite here?
You see, in this European Parliament, lefties had their own opinion about human rights, and each country, what they are not on the way of gender politic, which are not pro-migrants or something else, they try to bring in some traps and to attack this kind of countries. The other country is Poland during these days, because they want to make a procedure against Poland. Article 7 says that Poland and Hungary maybe can lose the right to vote. And so they are very, very hard attack these states. And for example, in Poland, they have a new justice. They have a new right for the High Court in Poland. And the Polish government says it would be necessary, because 20 years before they had a lot of old communists as judges in the High Court, and we have to change this politic. And before we came in power, in charge in Poland, nobody here in the parliament was talking about the old communist judges which attacked conservatives and nationalists in Poland. But now, when in the time when we want to change it to objective judges, everybody is attacking us. And so you can absolutely see they attack all countries which are not on their way what they should be.
So the attack on on Hungary has already been voted through. What stage is the attack on Poland at?
Now, in Poland, I told you, in Poland it was that they changed the rules for the judges.
No, sorry, no. When will this attack really hit home against Poland from the liberal elite here? They've already voted against Hungary, but when will it come up about Poland?
They did it before.
Already done.
It's really completed.
Wow.
And now they discussed in the same plenary session 2 weeks ago about to make procedures against Romania, because they had a referendum last weekend, and in this referendum the people had to vote against homosexual marriage, and this is a reason enough to attack
another country.
This country. And I think a lot of things will change after the next European election, and maybe before, because if they still start to attack the countries, if they still start to keep the right of voting in the European Council, I think more and more countries will thinking about leave this Europe.
Indeed. So I'd like to bring in Roberto and then Hervé on this now. So Roberto, from clearly there seems to be a division really between liberal Western Europe and the east, we've heard about Poland, Hungary and Romania. So sort of a big picture, what's going on here?
Well, it's a change of wind. It's something that has started a few years ago. It probably started from Russia when Putin took power, and he took power essentially first reuniting Russia, which was the first objective, so it was a national objective, then imposing politically the restoration of traditional values. But obviously talk about imposing in terms of law, but at the same time the great majority of Russian people were accepting that. Then this went into Belarus. We always forget Belarus. Belarus is an interesting country because has managed to keep a sort of, I would say, a nationalist state with stronger traditionalist sort of features, but at the same time being a bit ignored by the liberal media. But then the big change has taken place into Poland. Poland has developed an extremely important pro-life set of policies. I always remember that when Poland was in communist hands, there were an average of 350,000 abortions every year. Now we're talking about 600 abortions every year, and the radical Christian groups want to eliminate those too, because they think that obviously it's all evil, the destruction of life. But this has developed in Poland very strongly, not just on pro-life but also in immigration, and also on economical issues, because the fact that the state has managed to conduct its economy has brought the country to have now 5% of unemployment. It's one of the lowest in Europe, to have good wages, and especially to have a lot of money for people who are having children when they're young. This is an important social development, which we are obviously totally welcoming. And this wind now has come into Italy, and obviously this is something that has created a lot of impression, and I think it's going to develop in something that will change the face of Italy, and obviously our patriotic movement is going to play and has played a big role in this change.
Very good, very good. Hervé, I'd like to bring you in now. Roberto mentioned Russia as perhaps the start of this process. Now I know that you've been very involved in relations with patriots in Russia over years. You were involved with the Euro-Rus project some years ago when I was briefly as well. What to add to what Roberto said specifically with a view to the question of Russia and Europe and the relationship between the two?
But first, I believe that Russia is a part of Europe.
Yep.
We have a common destiny, we have common values, and I think that today our European traditional values are more alive in Russia than in the Western countries. And I think that now there is, of course, attacks, political attacks and propaganda war machine against Russia, because Russia could be an alternative to the European countries who disagree with the European Union policy. We see this with Orban. We already said that if there was really a problem with European Union, it could find friends in other countries, in other regions, and he speaks, of course, about Russia. And so that's the problem. The beginning of this really freedom spirit in Europe comes from Russia, but now today the enemy of freedom, the enemy of peace, they made some action against Russia. For this reason, because they are afraid that Russia could be an alternative, but also for all geopolitical issue. You know that US imperialism is always really against Russia influence, and they are ready today to begin a war in Europe, in the heart of Europe, in Ukraine, against Russia. That's the problem. We name Alliance for Peace and Freedom. It's not just for the fun. It's because we want peace. We don't want war again in Europe between U.S. Army of Western European armies and Russia. Russia is not an enemy. Russia is a friend of Europe. Russia is a part of Europe.
Yeah. Udo, can I ask you from the point of view of speaking as a German nationalist with the long and very sad history of the two wars between Germany and Russia. What's your view of Russia and how do you compare it to the European Union?
Yeah, first of all, it is logical that Russia is a part of Europe, should be not a part of Europe. It is a part of Europe, and we should find ways to bring it in the European Union or in the following thing, what coming in a reunited Europe. But anyway, I don't feel hate against Russia. If I see what happened today, I'm always thinking, what a terrible thing that we lost the war, because otherwise we wouldn't have the gender discussion, we wouldn't have the migration to Europe, and our people in Europe would have their own chance for the future and the thinking. And I think we had to work together with Russia and to work against the American imperialism and to stop it and to find a way Europe and Russia together. Mm-hmm. And I have been in the United States as a soldier for 2.5 years. And if I compare Russians with Americans and the mentality, I think the mentality from the Russians are closer to us, much more closer to us as the mentality of the multicultural society and the American way of life.
Okay, thank you. Roberto, I'd like to finish off with you. So looking ahead, next May there's the European elections. Presumably the British will be sitting this one out because we're supposed to basically have left by then. Whether this is going to happen is anybody's guess. My personal position or belief is that Theresa May and the whole of the British establishment never wanted to leave, and they're simply dragging this out so that enough years go by for enough elderly patriotic Brits to die, to be replaced by brainwashed young liberals or immigrants, to have another vote. Let's face it, they made the French vote again until they got it right. They made the Irish vote again until they got it right. They made the Dutch vote again until they got it right. Why would anyone think they're not going to make the Brits vote again until we get it right? So perhaps the elections after next, the Brits will be back. I don't know. But certainly in these forthcoming elections next May, we shouldn't be there. But Roberto, I know you're very closely in touch with our comrades and softer nationalists from all over Europe. So what do you think is going to happen in those elections next May, and how significant is it going to be?
Well, first I want to say that there was an opinion poll yesterday on Italians whether they want to leave Europe or to stay in Europe, and just 44, you're talking about a very pro-European country, also for historical reasons, but 44% said that they would stay in Europe, so it means that 56% are against. Having said that, obviously this is not a matter of everyone leaving Europe. It's a matter for patriotic groups and also the sort of movement that is developing in Europe to recreate a new Europe, which is a completely different thing. Obviously, no one wants BCE, the sort of central bank of Europe. No one wants bureaucratic commissions to dictate what people have to do. No one understands what European values are. We understand what European values are, and we have set our values very clearly. They are strongly attached to our Christian traditions, to our sort of Roman tradition, to our Greek traditions, but it's a very clear set of what we want, whereas the liberal Europe has really finished its time. In a way, we saw Marxism, communism finishing in '89, and I think 2019 is going to be the end of liberal Europe. What will be in its place is not going to be a fragmented Europe. It's not the case. It doesn't happen in history. It will be a different Europe where the different countries, the different peoples will be together, but with a different hat, a completely different set of ideas and values.
Well, if it's going to be like that, come next May, I might think, well, I should have voted Remain. But we will see. It's a very exciting time to be here and involved with this. So if I can just ask you each to say, if you'd like, a few words, message to our audience to finish off, and we'll call it a day because we're going to run out of time. Udo, you first of all.
Okay. Yes, Thank you for the words, and I have to say I'm member of the APF, also like you, and I'm very proud to be it, because this European system made only rules against us. They stopped paying money to us, and we are still here. We are working together for Europe, for a free Europe, for free nations, for the future of sovereign nations. And I think they can't understand that the party exists without money. But it is not the end of the APF, because now I think more and more people will join our party and working on staying together with us for Europe of free nations.
Excellent, thank you. Hervé?
I would say a little bit the same. I would say that in all way, APF and all the national parties who are members of APF will keep the fight against the system, against this European Union. We are for Europe, for another Europe, and we, as we say in some countries, we no surrender. So.
Indeed, we do say no surrender in some countries. Roberto, final word to our president.
Yes, I would agree with you all in the sense that the irony is that this structure of the European Party was created by the establishment, but for different purposes. They want to keep everything for their sort of small needs, to have a bit of work for the Mr. X or Mr. Y. We have thought to launch, through our political European Party, a revolutionary action in order to change Europe. We have so many obstacles, but I think at the end of the day, we will see next year what is going to happen, and there will be many surprises.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Do please pass this on, and wherever you are, don't forget, no surrender.